Okay. So in my last job, I was the global CFO of a fairly large public Japanese company, roughly about $5 billion, and with about 40 group companies. So I had reached a point where I don't know if you remember the Talking Head song about once in a lifetime. And there is this line in there, which is, how did I get here? And so that was kind of what was happening to me, that, I was working pretty crazy hours at that point in time. And when you're in the executive, in the board and everything, you work some really late hours. And so part of me was really thinking about, is this what I really want to do for the rest of my life?
Right. Yeah.
And so this proverbial kind of, how did I get here? And I think the other question that was coming up for me was that I had climbed this corporate mountain. And the question was, what is a mountain that is worth climbing for me going forward?
Right.
And
Yeah.
and I was thinking it had to be meaningful. It had to be in alignment. And so those were some of the questions that I was sitting with before I started to make the shift towards, becoming independent and starting my own work.
Fantastic. Thank you. You're definitely not alone. I think so many of us have had great, successful careers in our jobs, and
Yes.
and then suddenly get to a point that we think, is this it? We really want something more, and it's fascinating for me, definitely, and I'm sure for the viewers as well, to see that being amplified through these stories, and that it's okay actually to feel like that. It's not the end of the world. You're not sort of alone in wanting that. And also the fact that sometimes society basically forces you to be in a job that no longer serves you. And especially nowadays, it's so much easier to go off and not be in a corporate job anymore. So there's endless possibilities out there. So tell me, what happened next? So you had this realization. What did you do? And please expand.
Okay. So I think how I am possibly different, and when we come to the advice section, I'll go back and talk about some of the things that people can do differently. But in my case, it was a question of building the bridge as I walked on it. So I made up my mind. I said, okay, this is not for me. There was this inner voice which kept reminding me on a regular basis that this is not you. This is not how you want to be for the rest of your life. And so I listened to that voice. I didn't have anything planned at that point in time. So I thought I will take a sabbatical. And during that sabbatical, I will sort of have this internal conversation with myself and then see what is it that life is asking from me. And part of the logic for the sabbatical was that if I'm in a very busy environment, when sometimes life whispers things to us, we are not able to hear it. So how can I create the space for it that will allow me to really understand what is it that at this point in my life I should be focusing on? And more importantly, what is something that I can say is my calling going forward that would be very meaningful for me, would bring a lot of joy for me? And those were some of the questions that I was sitting with. So I took a sabbatical. I moved to Kyoto. I used to live in Tokyo. I moved to Kyoto. And Kyoto is a very contemplative city. It's very quiet. There's a temple at every corner. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to wander, psychologically wander. And then while you're wandering, what you are kind of doing is you're trying to find yourself. So there's this paradox that you have to be lost before you find yourself.
Yes, that's a
And
very wise statement.
so allowing yourself that space that you can be lost and saying, it's okay. I reached a certain level. I have confidence in my abilities. I know that I will be able to bring my strengths going forward. So it's silencing the inner voice in us and also distancing ourselves from other people who may not understand it at that point in time.
God, yeah, that's so
And,
true.
and because if they don't understand it, they pull you back. And so if we can kind of think about that, in life, we get stuck in these orbits. And to move from one orbit to the other orbit, we need a rocket, a new rocket. And we have to create that rocket or find that rocket and say, okay, what is going to allow me to be able to move to that other orbit, which is so attractive to me at this point in time?